I let a lot of people come up to me afterwards and they were like, "Oh my God, you had so much energy." I'm like, "Cool, I know, but like, was the content good?" It's like, "Yeah." "Did you learn anything?" "Yeah." "Are you going to change how you practice?" "Definitely." "Cool, then I did my job." And today, if I just wanted to be exciting, I do cocaine. I want you to change your practice and your life. Attention chiropractors, slayers of subluxation, unleashers of the imprisoned impulse, and protectors of the developing brain. Welcome to the Cranial Doc podcast, where we master the work that actually changes lives. Craniopathy, nervous system-based care, and the business systems that let you scale without selling your soul. I'm Dr. Anthony Pellegrino, pediatric chiropractor, certified craniopath, and proud automation geek. Let's dive in. Subluxation slayers, welcome back. We're going to get to talk cranial mechanism today, and this is going to be a fun one. I am recording a lot of content coming off of the ICPA weekend, and my heart is exploding. I'm so ready to serve. I am so ready to get better and up my game, and in the process, go on the journey with you, which is awesome. And I had the pleasure to share and yell very quickly at the audience this past weekend, and I let a lot of people come up to me afterwards and they were like, "Oh my God, you had so much energy." I'm like, "Cool, I know, but like, was the content good?" It's like, "Yeah." "Did you learn anything?" "Yeah." "Are you going to change how you practice?" "Definitely." "Cool, then I did my job." And today, if I just wanted to be exciting, I do cocaine. I want you to change your practice and your life. Okay, so great. Now that that's there, I went through this mechanism of how subluxation, cranial subluxation, shows up throughout a lifetime. How we can start with, there's lots of different mechanisms here, right? But we can start with the gag reflex, the narrowing of the palate, the compensation there. And that's not the point. I'm just going to kind of walk through, not go through the whole mechanism there. Have the tongue tie, have that be revised, but it missed the primary driver of, let's say, for example, the sphenoid not into moving inflection. Then the maxilla can't move into external rotation because of the occipital sphenomaxillary palatine suture being restricted, and how that can kind of show up as well with issues with the occipitomastoid suture, and because the jugular foramen is there, and that's where spinal accessory nerve, vagus, and glossopharyngeal nerve all exit the cranium. That makes sense to me that a subluxation that could be infecting inflection extension, external rotation, can be impacting both the development of the palate and causing direct compensation at the gag reflex because of vagus and glossopharyngeal, and also the spinal accessory nerve, which is the nerve that innervates the sternocleidomastoid, which is related to and one of the major components involved in torticollis, including the occiput and the frontal and all the other things that we create this really crazy feedback loop. That's not the point of this, but that's the mechanism that I discussed, and if you weren't there, you missed out. Okay, welcome to the Cranial Doc podcast. Email me if you want me to go over that shit again. Cool. Then how that gets missed, no one does anything about it, shows up at that toddler who's mouth breathing, 3 years old, some excuses. They've got the adenoids, the tonsils, the congestion. It shows up 7 years old. Now they haven't gotten a good quality night's sleep ever because, their body's been stuck in fight or flight. They've been mouth breathing. They've been deoxygenating. And that shows up, and, teachers are like, "Oh, ADHD evaluation," and, "Oh, retained reflexes," and, "Oh, well, by the way, the dentist saw that there's teeth crowding because the palate's not big enough, but it's like, let's just fix the teeth crowding and forget about the palate problem." And that shows up as somebody who's like 16 years old, and how then or 16, 25, 35 years old is what I said, and they have that head forward posture, and people blame it on the desk. Chiropractors blame it on the desk. They're clenching their jaw constantly because that gag reflex that they had when they were a baby was so unstable that they decide to try to be able to create the unpredictability of the gag reflex of, hey, anything that goes in my mouth could cause me to feel like I'm going to choke and die, which is fight or flight. So how do I get as much stability there as possible so there's less uncertainty? I do that by creating a bruxism pattern, and now I'm clenching constantly. Then this shows up in your office and you're adjusting the spine. It's lighting up like fireworks, but they go right back the next day. So anyway, that is the mechanism that I presented over a 25-minute period. You got that in 3 minutes and 52 seconds, including my intro. So yeah, we did that a lot. And I had a lot of people come up to me and be like, "That is my child. That is this patient. They're 16. Are they aft?" And the thing is, no. That's okay. Okay? It's okay. It's okay. I, of course, love pediatrics. I also love helping adults with TMJ, and they can get amazing results. And they all also have the same pattern. and like they get great results. So let's walk through for the older child or for the adult with this pattern, what are the pieces that you're going to want to look for? Okay. So, number one, from the SOT framework, okay, just something that's really important. This first subluxation starts as a category 1 subluxation, meaning that it's dural. Eventually, this category 1 subluxation can develop into a category 2. By the way, if you're SOT, I am simplifying this as much as I possibly can to make this as simple as I possibly can to put this on a podcast. So if you're like, you missed this nuance, the answer is I know, okay? So just bear with it, all right? It can basically create a compensation of category 2, where now it's a pelvic instability that becomes the primary issue that needs to be addressed first before addressing the upper cervical or it needs to be addressed before worrying about the category 1 dural subluxation pattern. And absolutely, yes, the first thing that I'm looking at is this pattern is going to show up in your office, especially if they've been crunching and grinding and their head has come forward. They are going to you're going to see like they sway back, anterior pelvic tilt, and possibly or probably instability of the pelvis and pelvic floor. Okay, that's going to probably be happening. That is, especially if they're a woman coming in older, especially if they're postpartum, like especially if they were a gymnast or a swimmer or a long distance athlete, or if they have to now cross their legs when they sneeze or they'll pee their pants, we kind of expect that to show up, okay? We need to be ruling that out because again, if that is the primary driving pattern and we go right to just the cranium, right to the upper neck, and we forget that the whole body is a continuous system and we don't address the primary issue of right now, guess what? You're just going to continue to be throwing lipstick on a pig. It's not going to be the right thing. So we've got to address that first. That's going to be the first thing that we look at, okay? What are the other pieces as well that we're going to pay attention to? Of course, we have this like anterior head carriage is going to be very important with this anterior pelvic tilt and sway back. So this is a big piece as well because a lot of people in our profession that I've seen, and I don't mean to call you out here, but because a lot of people have done like day 1, day 2 training with things like elements of close or close for chiro or whatever. And of course, what we know when you do that, by the way, I can't recommend those programs enough. They're really important. They're really great, okay? I like them. I think that you should go to them. I think that you should learn how to position yourself as the authority if you haven't done that yet. I don't have an affiliate code or anything else like that. Just learn how to do a good day 1, day 2, okay? Especially if you're taking care of adults and you take x-rays. It's a no-brainer. Just do it, okay? But a lot of the times, you build in the value step, we do corrective care, so there's nothing better for corrective care than doing a Denneroll. And a lot of times in our profession, we just try to we say that we do things from above, down, inside out, but then we act very mechanistically. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I've probably, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that I've personally spoken to you about this, that we're like, if they have a back pain, we give them a cervical Denneroll, or if they have a low back pain, we give them a lumbar Denneroll, or we just give everybody cervical, okay? Because everybody needs one. And if you're a CPP listening to this, again, I'm going to kind of keep this as easy as possible, but you might be really happy because you might be like, I say this all the time. In many of these cases, the anterior head carriage, and more importantly, the angle of T1 is too big. And so because it's too great, the cervical Denneroll is contraindicated and we need to do something else. Okay, let's read that again. If our T1 angle is too steep to the vertical, and you give them a cervical Denneroll, there is a chance, depending on numerous other factors, that you're going to be making the flexion of their lower cervical spine worse and making them worse and not better. I have been working at the TMJ niche for the last 4 years. I cannot remember the last time that I saw somebody with severe TMJ with a T1 angle that was in the range of needing a cervical Denneroll. I have had to use a different one on all of these different cases because that T1 angle is too steep. I'm often looking at the thoracic spine using something like a posterior gainer or compression extension unit. I sometimes have to address the lumbar spine and decrease the thoracic curvature that way. Or, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. Don't worry about that. Okay. We're actually, more than lumbar, we're probably definitely actually more often using the compression extension or posterior gainer. So don't worry about lumbar. But either way, I think Deed Harrison on the CPP site, I don't know, they probably changed it because who the heck has a DVD player anymore? But they have like a 5 DVD series of how to use and prescribe the freaking Denneroll with research and exactly what angles you should be measuring and everything else like that. I don't think anyone should be allowed to give, I have very limited knowledge of CPP, so they might be like, you're an idiot. But I don't think anyone should be allowed to just be giving random Dennerolls without actually having been studied what needs to be done and when. And so if you want to do corrective care, like actually measure the ankles and know what's going on. Okay. So we talked about pelvic stability. We talked about the actual corrective, like have them lay on a freaking pool noodle on the thoracic spine. Like we got to get that head back, right? And we can give like shoulder retraction based exercises. There's lots of different things that you can do to support that. Cranially, we need to be working, like category 1 typically goes more with temporal bone and the actual occlusal ischial in the jaw, but we need to be working with and evaluating, have we started to, like, what is a pattern that's showing up? Is it a temporal primary? Is the jaw recessed? Is it deviating to the side? Is it deviating on occlusion? Is it deviating when it's opening? Is the palate compressed? Is the sagittal suture ridging? Is there frontal rotation? Like these are all the different components that go into being able to manage this, okay? A big thing that we need to work as well is the actual occiput C1 junction also. That needs to be very, very, very clear, okay? The occiput C1, C2 complex, you can use like an upper cervical type care. You can use like Syntropy or MLS or anything that views the actual couple motion of occiput C1, C2, and like using that intelligently and not just racking and cracking it. SOT is a great framework for that. There's lots of different ways you can address that and just making sure that's moving appropriately. Otherwise, like there's going to be so much dural tension that you'll never be able to do anything in the cranium. Okay. So we're going to look at all those different pieces. Once we do that full evaluation of the cranium and see what's going on, then we can start to be like very specific in addressing that. I'm trying to keep this like as simple as I possibly can without like naming a bunch of stuff. The bottom line is that if you're trying to learn and you don't know any cranial work and you are just listening to this podcast and you're going to go check things and not know what you're talking about, I don't think you should do that. I think that's bad. I think that you should come to like mine or someone else's cranial seminar. I have a new one that's launched right now. You can go to thecranialdoc.com/founder and get involved with our founders cohort of our online and in-person Foundations of Cranial Work seminar, which it's just going to be awesome. But you need to be studying cranial work and real cranial work, real specific adjustments and not just general releases, okay? And so I'm purposely not giving you the specifics because I think we need to use our powers for good. And I think if you listen to what I'm saying and you're just like, oh, what is the move for this pattern? I think that's bad for the profession. So that's why I'm not being like, oh, it's always a temporal like rotation. But if you know enough to be like, oh, I work with the cranium and I name a bunch of stuff, you're like, okay, cool, I know exactly how to check that. Okay, so that's kind of who this is for. So we've got pelvis, we talked about the actual Denneroll position, and we talked about the cranium itself. The couple different pieces that for those of you who are doing cranial work that you're going to notice here is that with the TMJ pattern, and especially if they're bruxing, something that a lot of other cranial psychotherapy, I think LSB, some other places, put a little bit more influence, I think, on the parietals and sagittal suture than many of the chiropractic courses that I've taken do. And that makes sense. I think that there's different reasons why. But I think that in these cases, especially when you have the sagittal suture, that there's been such a massive bruxing pattern, it starts to ridge. I think that we need to put a little bit of extra attention in the sagittal suture, reducing tension on the falx and doing it in a way that we can actually open up and reduce pattern. Think any midline suture. So the sagittal suture coming across, the intermaxillary suture, inside the palate, the fruit jar sutures, and how they kind of connect to different things. I think those also all become really massively important in this case also, just because of the amount of just tension that's going through from them bruxing. Those things can get really, really, really locked up. And all those different sutures in the face, they're there to kind of buffer that force. And then the vomer buffers it going to the sphenoid. And just over time, it just really, really, really locks everything up. So we need to be checking and releasing all of those different things. We should be seeing really massive changes right off the bat with like sleep right away. Somebody who has this pattern, when you do like a sagittal suture or intermaxillary suture release, tying those two pieces together, for the average person, when you do that, they're like, okay, cool. That was a really cool adjustment. But when you do it in these cases, they're like, where the F was that my whole life? Oh my God, what did you just do? And it's kind of like I call it the John Cougar. It's one of my things that I call the John Cougar Mellencamp adjustment. If you guys are a fan of John Cougar Mellencamp, you're at the song Hurt So Good. Come on, baby, make it hurt so good. Sometimes love don't feel like it should. And the adjustment definitely like hurts so good because you're doing this release, you're doing this adjustment. There's so much tension that's in there. It is painful. And then afterwards it's like, oh my God, my mouth can actually hang open and my teeth aren't trying to break each other. So anyway, that's the pattern that I would look at. That's how I would approach it from a corrective care standpoint. I would definitely clear that pelvis. I would definitely clear some of those patterns in the cranium. And I would definitely not just address the cervical spine with a cervical Denneroll. If you are seeing this pattern and you do a lot of TMJ care in your office, do me a favor, check that T1 angle, and then also tell me how many of your patients have a posterior Ponticus. My associate noticed this, and I've seen some case studies for TMJ that kind of talk about posterior Ponticus. My theory is that she's seeing literally 40%, I think 30 or 40% of our patients with severe TMJ issues have a posterior Ponticus. And I'm just noticing that a lot more. And so if you're just seeing that too, and it's not just us, like maybe it's just New Jersey everyone has a posterior Ponticus, I don't know, because of the water or something like that. If you're noticing that, please email me and let me know. I'd be really curious to see. Anywho, I hope that this little rant on the physiology of the cranium and these cases helps you. And I did have an extra coffee today, so if I was too all over the place to be of help, also let me know. And to join us for our upcoming seminar, check out, it's going to be a game changer. It is level 1, level 2, online and in person. And the really cool thing that we're doing is bringing in, and we can thank Dr. Amy Spolster for being like, you need to do this. Like, you do something different than anyone else that I've ever seen, so you should probably show people how you do it. And we're going to go through a lot of the actual business systems that we have, like our day 1, day 2, and different things like that, to be able to take this work and implement it in a way that positions you as the authority and, of course, gets you paid because you're doing the work to be the best chiropractor in your community. So you should certainly be, compensated as such. So anyway, cranialdoc.com/founder, and I will see you guys to the next episode. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Cranial Doc podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. And if you did, it would mean the world to me if you jumped over to iTunes or your favorite podcast player of choice and subscribed, rated, reviewed, and shared this episode with a friend that you know could benefit. We have a ton of this information and more in our free email series at thecranialdoc.com. So go ahead and jump on there, subscribe, and get me raw, unfiltered in your inbox every week, changing your practice. Can't wait to see you for the next episode.